eating trash for their lunches. Cause in life you gotta roll with the punches. Whoa, started Midwest, now we Cali boy. Always getting to it, yeah, we making noise. Started from the bottom, you already know. Gotta move fast to the cash, that's the way it go.
What's going on, guys? Garbage Eaters here with our special guest today, Michael Leytem. He's here to talk today about leadership and fishing and what they have in common. But before we kind of get into what that's about, I kind of just want to learn more about you, Michael. If you can kind of catch us up to date, what brought you to San Diego, how we met, just kind of your life story up to now as quickly and concisely as you can get there.
I don't know, I'm not very quick or concise about many things, but I'll try my best. Thanks for having me on, appreciate it. I love what you guys are doing with Garbage Eaters. For those of you who are watching, my name is Michael Leytem, like Cody said. I'm originally from Cascade, Iowa, so a fellow Hawkeye here with Cody.
Go Hawks.
So my story really begins back in Iowa, and I grew up in a very small town, and after going through high school and loving the outdoors and loving to really learn about people and the mind, I decided to go to college at the University of Iowa and study psychology. And while I was at Iowa, I actually joined the University of Iowa bass fishing team. So a lot of people don't know that there are bass fishing teams out there. I joke around and I tell people that I was a D1 athlete. They kind of look at me, they're like, you didn't play football? What do you know? Like Lynn over here, I mean, he looks like he plays football, but yeah. Cody too. Anyway,
did you get scholarship money for that?
No, it was a club, but some people ask that too. Maybe down south they actually do give scholarships. I don't know, like Alabama or something. Yeah. So anyway, after studying about psychology, I knew I always wanted to help people, and I was really fascinated about the human mind and the way that the brain worked. I decided to go on to grad school. This was when the economy really started to tank, and I graduated from Iowa in '09. And I mean, you want to talk about the struggle and the grind and eating garbage along the way. I actually had to take a job after I graduated at a pizza shop, making $5.15 an hour plus tips. So here I was, a graduate with distinction and honors in psychology, couldn't get a job. And you know, I grinded it out and I applied to grad schools where I went on to get my master's degree in industrial organizational psychology. It's a really long field or long name for a type of psychology that is really around business and the workplace. So if you think about psychology, most times people think about clinical psychologists, or they think about child development and the psychology behind that. But IO psychology, industrial organizational psychology, is all about the workplace, leadership. It's about how are you selecting and developing, training your people while you have them, using psychology along the way. So while I was there, I started to really think about what my passions were in life and what I wanted to do. Fishing was something that I enjoyed early on in my life through college. Psychology was always something that I really, really enjoyed. And then leadership. Leadership came on when I took an internship in Ohio. I started to work for this company in Ohio that really focused on assessing and developing leaders. So I got to see a lot of leaders get put in very difficult situations and how coaches interacted with them and really moved the needle and helped progress them. So that combination of those three, the psychology, the fishing, and the leadership, kind of led me to make a big splash and a big move to come out to San Diego. And coming out to San Diego was something that my wife and I wanted to do because we wanted to take a risk and try something new. Our hearts were calling us out here, and I started with a new firm out here, and I kept learning as a consultant about leadership, about organizations, some of the changes in the world, but I still felt like I had a greater purpose and a greater gift to give. And that's what really got me into writing the book that I'm writing right now.
Very cool.
Yeah, so you talked about the book. That's pretty interesting. Let's get into more on that. How did that get going, or where are you at in the process with that?
Yeah, so the title of the book is Catching Leadership, and it is a leadership development book. I'm currently drafting content. I'll get into a little bit more of the details on that, but just want to kind of give the premise and the lay of the land of what the actual book's about. So Catching Leadership is about how to lead others through the catch and release model. So I've actually developed a new model of leadership using a fishing framework that is really catchy, you know, pun intended, but it is. It's something that people can really easily grasp, because sometimes when you think of leadership, people will think about certain aspects of leadership, you know, maybe courage or emotional intelligence, or maybe they'll think about self-reflection or, you know, what have you, but they don't often think about it holistically. So the real goal of the book is to give people an easy metaphor and an easy model to think about leadership through fishing analogies. So provides that framework.
Now you said you kind of hinted at something I think I recognized on your closed Facebook group, and we kind of mentioned that towards the end of the show here, but is that the Carly? Is that what you were trying to hint at there?
Yeah, so having the background that I do in IO psychology, I know that it's really important when you are creating, you know, a new leadership model and you're going to be working with people, that your theory is backed in science. So it's one thing to have the idea and to have some nice catchy, you know, illustrations and metaphors when it comes to fishing and leadership and psychology. And then it's another thing to actually back it up with an instrument that measures those constructs of leadership that you can then work with people and help coach people. So what I've done to date so far is I've piloted the Carly. I sometimes joke that she's my second wife, because a lot of time has gone into creating the items, and then also you know, finding a good sample pool of people. So to date I have 115 leaders who have taken this assessment, this pilot, and I'm currently working through the statistical analysis on it to really strengthen the tool, consolidate it, knock out the items that aren't measuring the constructs of leadership the way that they should be, and keep the best ones. And that'll be a tool I'll use moving forward that'll go along with the book.
And Carly stands for what?
Yeah, so Carly stands for the Catch and Release Leadership Index. So it'll be a leadership index maybe similar to something like StrengthsFinder. Sometimes people take that. You know, you can go through the book, you can see what your strengths are. It'll be the same with the Carly. You can see what your leadership strengths are, you can see what your development areas are, and then you can read about it in the book and go through some of the activities to help you.
Okay, so it'll actually be in the book. It won't be something separate that they can download online, or?
It will be separate, but all of the constructs in the Carly relate one-to-one in the book.
Right on.
So yeah.
That's pretty sweet. So you take them both together, and essentially you can build your leadership skills, strengthen yourself, learn more about your skills, but also like enhance your leadership abilities.
Exactly. So it's so important when you think about leadership development and growth. I mean, it can be growth in anything. There's a couple of key components, but one is first understanding your current, you know, strengths and areas of development. It's one thing sometimes we think we know what our strengths or development areas are, but to actually have a reliable and valid assessment to say, you know, here's where I am compared to other leaders, then you can start diving deep into the right elements of leadership that are going to make the biggest difference for you. And it's a combination of both. It's, you know, maximizing your strengths. You don't want to neglect those. That's your strongest part, right? But it's also finding out what are those gaps that you have that are worthwhile to develop. You're not going to be able to develop everything, and there's no such thing as a perfect leader, but you can be strategic about which, you know, areas of leadership you want to focus on.
Now, in college, I had to take that StrengthsFinders thing, and I can't remember, like, word for word what my strengths were. I remember it kind of being surprising to me, what the results I got back. I'm like, no, this can't be right.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of denying the results, like, this test is bogus, really.
I didn't tell you were perfect, Cody.
Yeah, well, no, it just, it told me I was really good at some things, and I'm really bad at things I thought I was really good at. So with this Carly thing, I'm assuming some people are going to have the same reaction as I did. They're not going to believe maybe the results they get back, but what I've come to find out is that the results on my bogus StrengthsFinders test they were right, they were true. Yeah. And it just took me a while to process or accept that. So do you have any advice to people that might be going through that similar situation with Carly?
Good for you, Cody. Yeah, I mean, thanks for sharing. It's something that a lot of leaders struggle with, a lot of people struggle with, is when you hear that you have gaps. I mean, we all have gaps, we're all human, we come with different skill sets and different experiences. And so sometimes it takes a little while to swallow that feedback, or to look at the data and say, wow, this is really me. It's so key to self-reflect and to find the time in your busy day to really think about yourself, Cody, or myself or Lynn, to say, am I the type of person, the type of leader that I think I am? And the best time to sometimes do that is right after a situation, in close proximity to when it happened, when it's still fresh in your mind. It's not always convenient to do that, so sometimes you have to carve out time, and that's where the fishing comes back in, because a lot of people find that when you can remove yourself from a situation, get out into a serene environment, and really think and start processing things, and asking yourself, what am I strong at? How have the experiences in my life been going? You can start to say, okay, I need to do some things differently, or maybe I need some help here. Maybe I should work with a coach. Maybe I should take a new assessment. Maybe I should read a book about leadership if that's where I want to grow. So it's hard to swallow, data that goes against what you sometimes believe, but that's why it's so important to have the scientific piece behind it. Mm-hmm. If anyone just makes up a survey or assessment, they give it to someone and they take it to heart, and it's not based in anything,
right, that
can actually do more damage than good. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm going through the analysis right now. I'm really trying to strengthen the Carly, but it's completely normal to have that reaction and to think about it and to come to terms with it.
Right, yeah, I got in a big debate with, it wasn't my professor, it was this one lady from a different business that presented it to the class, and she's like, yeah, you should have the same, results as you always had when you taken this. And I was like, I've taken this 6 years ago, and I've taken it last year, and they were polar opposites, and my last one I think was pretty accurate, so like I've started to tier everything I do during the day towards my strengths, and then I've been reading books and different things to try and strengthen my weaknesses, obviously.
Yeah.
But I've really tried to hone in on the strengths at this particular test that I had, and it's actually really helped in a lot of ways. So I'm glad I finally come to that point of accepting it, I guess.
Yeah. Without going like too nerdy on you, but to just explain this, because I think this is a common misconception that a lot of people have when it comes to these types of assessments. There's personality, and then there's also skills-based assessments. And so when you think about personality is relatively stable throughout your lifetime. Meaning that if you're an extrovert, as a teenager and in college and in your 30s and 40s, you're probably going to be an extrovert pretty much your life. That's not really going to change. Same thing if you're an introvert. But when it comes to certain skills, leadership skills, that you can actually do something about, specific behaviors that you can grow and develop, those type of assessments can change over time. If you're proactively reading books and you're being coached and you're trying new techniques out at work, you can actually move the needle on those things. Mm-hmm. So sometimes when people take different assessments, they don't really understand what's personality versus skills that I can actually develop.
Right. Yeah. And that's probably exactly what my issue was at the time. So.
Yeah. But it's just a part of the book. The Carly isn't everything. It's just to enhance the book, and it's to bring the science behind it. Really, the core of the book is about catch and release, this concept that throughout your life you're going to have different experiences that you're going to try and catch something from and learn something from as a leader. And sometimes it's on your own when you have to learn how to, using fishing analogies, you have to learn how to cast your own line. You have to learn how to first fish and get the techniques and get the basics down. But then also with other people, leadership is about more than just one person, right? So who are you bringing into the boat with you as a leader? Do you think about that, or do you just go around your day interacting with different people but not really giving much thought to the type of people that you interact with and the type of diversity, the diversity of thought, and what they can teach you as well as what you can teach them? Thinking about things like putting down, your own ambitions to set someone else up for success. Sometimes I think about like my dad when I was a child and I went fishing a lot. He loved fishing and he wanted to go out there and have a good time and fish. He worked really hard. But as a kid, I was always getting snags. I needed help, tying my line and all those things. Well, he was demonstrating leadership by putting aside his own ambitions for the moment to help show me how to learn something, you know, down the road that I would be able to help myself and also then teach others. So catching, the catch and release model, the catch part is all about the experiences you catch and the skills that you build. And then the release side, which I think is almost just as important and overlooked so often, is how do you let go? How do you let go of the experiences and the things that just don't serve you anymore? Are you taking time to think about it and self-reflect, like when you get an assessment back? Are you being mindful in the moment and really present and listening? Are you forgiving yourself? I mean, one thing that a lot of leaders struggle with is they're so hard on themselves, because if you're a perfectionist and you're always trying to strive for greatness, you're a high achiever, when something doesn't go right, are you just going to beat yourself up? A coach once told me, they said, Michael, ask yourself this: do you give yourself the same amount of slack that you give other people? And that was really profound to me, because I usually give people more slack than I probably give myself. So the release is all about learning how to unlearn things that don't serve you, how to be really present and let go and be the best that you can be. And it's this cyclical process where you're always catching and releasing, catching and releasing.
And I have like a personal question with that. And I won't give specifics out, but at my job now, there's a lot of changes going on, and we caught a big fish, if so to speak, whether we wanted to or not. And I just, you know, a lot of my coworkers, you know, managers, you know, whoever that I've talked to, everybody knows that this change is going on, and everybody deals with it a little bit differently. Now, do you have some advice for me as, you know, the salesperson, and then also the managers and different things like that, and how to be good leaders and kind of stay optimistic and real at the same time, and so you can help, you know, bring everybody else up, and so no one gets demotivated, if that's demotivated, if that's the word. Yeah. Change is always tough, and I'm glad that you bring it up, because it's kind of the new normal. I mean, change has always been there, but in today's society and the work pressures that we're feeling, I mean, you have all sorts of different things going on right now with automation and digital labor. You have different things going on with demographic differences and generational differences, with baby boomers leaving the workforce, millennials starting to take over and even get into leadership positions. It is a very, what people refer to as a VUCA world right now: volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And it's tough. So a situation like this that happened at work, you know, whatever that big fish was that you caught, whatever that change was, there's a couple of key things that are always fundamental. And the first one is communication. Like, communication is always key. If a big change is going to happen, people have to know why. They have to know why it's impacting them, what's going to change for them. They have to be able to see the long-term vision and the strategy behind the change and really believe into it. And you'll notice, like, if you look online about, you know, change or change management, there's a learning curve. There's almost a curve that goes through people's mind as they go through change, and it can be something that at first they begin to maybe get excited about the change, or maybe they're pessimistic about the change, and then they understand, wow, this is really going to be a lot of work, I don't know about this anymore. And then they kind of turn the corner at the end. They're like, you know what, that's actually a good thing. I'm glad we went through the trenches. I'm glad we actually made that. So communication really is key. That's going to be fundamental when it comes to change. I think authenticity is also super important too. Whenever you're dealing with change, authenticity is such an important leadership characteristic, but you have to be real with people. If you're not real with people about how the change is going to impact them, and you're not real in even the way you believe it as a leader, I mean, if I'm told that I need to go promote this change and I don't agree with it, how can I go out there and motivate other people behind it? Right. So you have to be authentic in why. So that almost comes back to, like, your values, and if the change, you know, is aligned with your values and certain things like that. I mean, those are a couple pieces without knowing all the full details, but communication, authenticity are always key when it comes to change. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
So it's been a while since I've been out fishing. So
how long?
It's a good amount of time.
How many worms have you touched, Lynn?
A couple. I mean, maybe not, you know, fishing wise. Touched a lot of worms just out, you know,
fair enough,
chilling, digging through the dirt. you know,
Okay.
5, 6 years old.
So it's been a while, okay.
Yeah. But tell us more about the whole fishing thing. How is that relating to leadership? What is the connection?
Yeah, it's the question I get a lot. I'm like, okay, I get leadership psychology. People are like, what's this fishing thing? And, you know, can I still get something out of your book if I don't go fishing or haven't gone fishing since I was a little kid? And the answer is yes. There's actually like a lot of metaphors between fishing and leadership that, you know, let me just explain a few right now. So a lot of times when people think about fishing, they think that there's a component of luck involved. And sometimes they think about, you know, throwing a bobber out there and just waiting all day until it's your lucky strike and you catch something. And the same thing is kind of true when it comes to leadership, where sometimes people think like it's luck. You know, that man or that woman, they just have it. They were born that way, it's luck. But actually it's not really the case, and it's especially not the case in bass fishing or any type of fishing where you're using an artificial lure. You're not using a worm that, you know, a fish naturally eats. Really what it's about is understanding the environment underneath the water, what you can't even see. I mean, so much about leadership is what you can't even see. You have a small sample of what's going on in the world. You can see someone at their desk maybe working for a few minutes a day, and you're off doing your own thing or you're in your computer. But there's this entire environment. There's cultural things, there's different pressures people are feeling. The same thing's going on underneath the water. You can't see what's underneath the water. You have to envision and you have to really understand the surroundings. So when it comes to fishing, it's a lot of trial and error. You go to your tackle box, you try a new lure out, cast it a few times. You have to learn how to cast first. You know, when you're a leader, you have to learn how to lead first. You have to learn how to communicate first. You cast it out a few times. You're not getting any hits. What do? Do you keep casting it out? Well, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and not getting any results. So you go back to your tackle box, you pick out another lure, you try that one. This time you think you got a bite. So you're learning something. Like, wow, what was it? The color? Was it something else? The same thing in leadership. You try out a new approach. You go, wow, someone was really listening to me that time. I think I really connected there. So you're always honing in your skills based on the feedback that you're getting, whether it's fishing or leadership. Another thing that is a strong parallel between the two is that the unexpected will always happen. You can be out fishing and you can look at the forecast for the day and you can say it's the perfect day ever, and all of a sudden the storm clouds start rolling in and you go, what am I going to do out here? And the same thing happens at work. You can be going smooth on a project and, you know, just inevitability, things hit you. And so how do you react to that? So much about leadership is how you react to things. And really that's all you can control. There's so many things and elements that you can't control in life, but you can always control your reaction to things. And sometimes that's taking a deep breath, taking a step back, and really looking at the big picture before you do something drastic. Another thing when it comes to fishing and thinking about leadership is this time to reflect and this time to get out of an element like your office or wherever you're at. And maybe it's not fishing for some people, and that's okay. But with leadership, you can't just be in the grind all the time. You can't just be going and doing. You need to be developing and investing in yourself. So a lot of people go out fishing and it's not actually fish that they're after. They're after other things like a sense of inner peace. They're after getting their mind off things, feeling recharged. Same thing is true in leadership. Whatever that is for you, you have to find that release for yourself.
Mm-hmm. So, garbage eating, how is that woven into leadership, I guess? How does like garbage eating is in a sense of overcoming, doing things you don't want to do, how does that relate into leadership?
In so many ways. I mean, leaders are garbage eaters. I mean, you think about how many things, experiences, and skill development, and everything a leader has to do to be effective, and it's pretty mind-blowing actually, and it's a lot of garbage or a lot of tough grind that they have to go through. Sometimes I think as humans we like to glorify leadership and we like to put it on a pedestal and we say, you know, that's leadership. I saw a great documentary or movie, and you really look at that fundamental action or, you know, that leadership behavior. What you don't see is all of the garbage eating and all the grind that goes into it. I remember, watching fishing shows with my dad growing up, and I'd be like, wow, these guys are really good. They're catching a fish on every single cast, And Dad goes, well, son, like, they edit out the ones that they don't catch. I was like, okay, that makes sense. So it's the same thing with leadership. It's a lot of, like, the behind the scenes. I would say that's, like, the biggest overlooked aspect of leadership is, like, what are you doing when others aren't watching? What are you learning from your failures? How are you getting better when your door's closed, or the other actions, decisions in your life that are going to make you a better leader? It's not that you show up, from 8 to 5 and you're a leader at work. You're a leader 24/7 in the way that you behave, how you take care of your body, your interactions with your loved ones. I mean, leadership knows no boundaries. And I think sometimes people think that it's very, in this square box and it has to look a certain way. But one thing is for sure, you're not going to be an effective leader if you don't like to taste the garbage and you don't want to eat and learn throughout the process, because so much of it is learning from your experiences.
So, leadership, I always see good leaders, and they're really good mentors in a way. Really good leaders can teach other people to be good leaders, I think. And do you have anything in the book, without revealing too much, that kind of touches on the value of kind of passing on what you've learned, or the mentorship aspect of leadership?
Yeah. It's probably, I don't want to sound redundant by saying it's one of the most important things, but it truly is when it comes to leadership. Coaching and mentoring others, I mean, it's fundamental to leadership. And my philosophy is that a leader is a person who's willing and able to develop other leaders even beyond their own capabilities. Not someone who's withholding information and saying, I'm not going to grow and help other people. They're open and willing to share that, to develop other leaders. That's how you build a legacy. You develop all of these other leaders. So how do you go about doing that? You do have to lead by example. You got to walk the walk, as they say, but you also need to spend time mentoring and coaching, and understanding other people, and knowing that it's not their leadership style and their skill set might not match yours exactly. You have to coach to their skill sets. You have to coach to their experiences. You're going to learn a lot in the process, because you're going to learn about their struggles and whatnot, but you really have to be willing to listen and mentor and coach. Forgive, but also stretch them. Give them feedback. Sometimes the feedback that is difficult to give. But it's such a key component of leadership. It's not standing on a podium and just giving inspirational speeches all the time. That's not leadership. That's an aspect of leadership, but the mentoring and the coaching piece is key.
Right. And then, obviously, writing a book itself, I think, is insanely hard to do. That's why I haven't done it. But that's really interesting to me. Like, what's that process like, writing a book? Like, one day you're like, okay, I'm going to write a book. How do you actually go about doing that? I mean, that's a ton of time, ton of effort. How does that affect your relationships with your wife, your friends? What does it take away from your daily life, to write this book? Obviously, it's got to be a big commitment of yours.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. And to be honest with you, like, I never thought I was ever going to write a book up until I was in graduate school and I had given it some thought. But as a kid growing up, I never thought, I'm going to be an author someday, and I love books and things like that. I didn't. I was more running around and playing outside and hanging out with my friends and things like that. But once I got into college, I started to understand that I know that there's something inside of me that I want to share with the world, based on my experiences and based on the knowledge that I've been able to gather to help people. And so if you have a purpose, if you have something inside of your heart that you want to get out to the world, a book can be a great channel to do that. A podcast can be a great channel to do that. There are multiple ways to do it. Ultimately, I wanted to get it down on paper. It's one thing to have great ideas and to be able to coach people and talk to people. It's another thing to put yourself out there and really create something that can stand the test of time. And part of me felt like I needed to do that for myself. did I know how to write a book? Do I know how to write a book? I'm learning
we'll
as
find out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm learning as we go. But I did see a statistic when I was starting the book writing process. I was curious, like, how many people write books? How many people publish books? It's like 80% or something, or more actually, have aspirations to write a book. 80% of people, of U.S. citizens, have an aspiration to write a book, but very few actually do. I think part of it is this writing process and not understanding it, and will it be worth it in the end to actually go through the time, and it'll be painful and I'll have to edit it, and what if I write it and no one likes it? But all that doesn't matter if you're speaking your truth and you're writing down what you're passionate about, because even if it just changes one person's life, and a lot of times you'll hear authors say, this book saved my life. This book gave me purpose and gave me direction. That's enough of a reason to write a book in and of itself. As far as some of the hurdles and challenges, I mean, there are many. The biggest one comes from your own self-doubt, self-criticism, wanting perfection. You know, there'll be times where I'll be thinking about different audiences and I'll be like, am I really driving in with this group? You know, maybe it's the fishing audience or the leadership or the psychology, the academic audience. And at the end of the day, I just have to not seek that outside validation. It doesn't matter if it's not good enough for this group or that group. As long as I'm trying my best and I'm asking others for feedback on it and trying to hone my message, and it's good for me, it'll be good enough for what my purpose is.
Right.
So you get inside your own head a lot, but there's a lot of pieces that move around, and it takes a village to write a book. And I'm so grateful for the friends and family who are helping me out write this book. There's so many to even name right now, but you think about the graphic design that goes into it. You think about the editing in terms of, you know, the grammar and punctuation and getting people to proofread different sections. You think about the marketing aspect. You know, how do I market this thing? You think about even just the people you say, hey, I got this idea, and you share it, you know, just to see, does this sound right, does it not? Not because you're seeking their approval, but because if you don't fine-tune it along the way, it'll never kind of end up the way it should be. So, long story long, I guess, it takes a lot of people. You get inside your own head, but if you come back to the reason why you're doing it, it's worth it in the end.
Wrapping things up, when can we expect the book, or what's the timeline we're looking at?
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts going on yet, but the goal is to complete the book and have it ready for purchase by the beginning of 2019. So that's going to give me some runway yet to work on the cover, to edit, and continue to write the content. Really excited about that. I actually have a closed Facebook group that we'll put the link below here in the video. Check it out. It's invite only, so just ask yourself to join and I'll let you in. But I'm sharing a lot of the book writing process that we just talked about, a lot of the marketing process, and just really good leadership discussions about things related to the book, but also not related to the book, where it becomes a forum. I think we have 400 people in there now who get talking about different leadership experiences that they have. So definitely want to check that out if you're into leadership, and then of course learning more about the book. I'm really excited for the reader of this book because I feel like this book has a lot to offer. I think there will be people who come with it from more of a fishing background, and they're going to take away a lot of new leadership knowledge and psychology knowledge. And there's going to be people who come to it with leadership and psychology background who take away a little bit of fishing knowledge too. But one thing I can promise is that if you're a fisherman, you're going to leave with more leadership knowledge. If you're a leader, you're going to leave with more fishing knowledge. And if you're a fisherman who's also a leader, you're going to wish that you wrote the book yourself. So yeah, I'm excited to keep sharing all the progress that comes along the way.
Awesome. Good stuff. Yeah, that about wraps things up for today. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for being a part, you know, and helping support this Garbage Eater movement. Cody, you got?
If you guys want to support us when it comes to getting, you know, new camera lenses, microphones, and different things like that, obviously it's going to cost some money in order to market ourselves and get ourselves out there, in advertisement-wise. And the best way to do that and support us is by getting some of these t-shirts, whether it's a vintage black one here that Lynn's wearing, excuse me, or this military green. We have sizes from small to triple. If there's even a 4XL, I think we can get it, but it's extra. But they're super soft. I have not heard any negatives from these shirts yet. They don't shrink in the wash, and they're just really, really good quality shirts. And if you work out, they're amazing to work out in. So.
One thing I just want to say too is thank you to you guys for the opportunity to come on here and to talk about the book, but even more importantly, like, thank you for being leaders yourself, and by being inspirational and starting something new, putting yourself out there with this podcast. Like, it's really exceptional. You guys both work really, really hard, and it's just cool to get to meet other entrepreneurs and other people who are as passionate about what they're doing as you are about what you're doing. So I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you guys so much for the time.
Thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate it.
Follow us on Instagram at Garbage Eaters, and YouTube. Hit subscribe, hit the like button. I mean, if you have to hit the dislike button, hit it, but we don't encourage it. Also, you can find all of Michael's information on the links below and the information below.
Join the group.
All right. Remember, there is value in the garbage.
Absolutely.